The promise of social media fame can become an invigorating drug.
It empowers you, and you've not had power your whole life. She's become a local celebrity.
I woke up with 100,000 views. So then I started to build this whole image. It's like a gangster boo type, you know.
But maintaining that image comes at a cost.
It was like my clout with his clout. So it was like this big thing, but I started to see like red flags.
He was becoming more and more agitated.
I said, what the? I'm like, man, this cat is crazy. What does he own?
When you decide to prioritize your image over your values, you may end up risking it all.
She even wrote a song about the relationship of her being Bonnie and him being Clyde.
Some people, once they're out there, and it's too late to grab them back in to save them.
I remember praying, like, God, if this is meant for me to die, please let it be fast.
What happened to Bonnie? What happened to the ride or die person that you claim to be?
The gun comes out and he shoots.
I'm shaking so bad, and he's like, the devil told me to take this, so ha ha ha.
March 2nd, 2017. It's Thursday afternoon in the sprawling Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Dallas is a very vibrant city, full of cultural and ethnic diversity.
Dallas has always been larger than life.
But at 2:40 p.m., the hustle and bustle is pierced by the sound of gunshots.
This was in Oak Cliff, the southern end of town. That area is kind of known for being the higher crime half of the city.
A local shop owner was the first one to call 911.
He said after hearing the gunshots, he saw a young man lying in the streets, severely injured.
First responders race to the scene and find the victim unresponsive on the ground.
They do all they can to try to revive this young man.
They go to intervene to see if there's any life-sustaining treatments that they can do, but he's already deceased.
First responders locate the victim's driver's license and identify him as 19-year-old 𝕬𝕤𝕚𝕚. 𝕬𝕤𝕚𝕚 had already touched many lives at a young age.
He was an awesome kid, full of life. This was never a dull moment with him, I swear. He's a good kid.
He was the clown of the bunch. He's very athletic. He loved flipping, jumping off of anything, buildings, houses, cars, it didn't matter.
𝕬𝕤𝕚𝕚's charming personality made him popular with the ladies.
They're like, oh, Dre, oh, Dre. They love him, though, because he's so funny.
Not only did he have his own one-year-old, but he had a child on the way.
He was a good father to those kids, too. He stepped in. He was a good dad, a crazy one, but he was good. He's a big kid himself.
As a soon-to-be father of two, 𝕬𝕤𝕚𝕚 was determined to provide a solid future for his kids.
He wanted to be a rapper, but, you know, he was an athlete.
He always wanted to be like a football player, basketball player.
If he wanted to do something, he was gonna do it. Like, he would never be told no, that you can't do it. Yes, the sky is the limit.
But now 𝕬𝕤𝕚𝕚𝕚 lies dead in the middle of a city street, gunned down in broad daylight.
So detectives get to the scene and they begin looking for evidence in the crime.
I was the lead detective on this case. You just show up and we kind of figure it out as we go.
They determined that 𝕬𝕤𝕚𝕚𝕚 was wounded in his hip which severed a major artery, and that's what ultimately caused his death.
There were some spent casings. Those were .380 casings.
Detectives turn to the witnesses at the scene, hoping they can provide more information about what happened.
Unfortunately, the witnesses didn't see the whole thing. They only saw the aftermath.
They heard the shots, came out to see what was going on, and found him lying on the ground in a pool of blood.
However, the shop owner who made the initial 911 call has some good news for detectives.
He tells them there's a security camera on the outside of his shop that very well could have captured the full crime.
It was pointing in the direction that witnesses described the event happening.
When detectives get their hands on the footage, it's just what they're hoping for.
The footage doesn't appear to be high quality, but it does capture the murder.
The video begins with 𝕉𝕬𝕚𝕚 casually walking through the parking lot.
He's just walking through the parking lot and then starts walking across the street.
He's moving in one direction, and he turns his head as if someone has called out to him.
That's when another man enters the frame.
It appears that the communications between the two were developing into a more of aggressive conversation based on the body language of the two individuals.
Like he's kind of in the middle of the street and kind of keeps backing up, you know, and trying to walk off.
That's when the other man pulls out a gun.
The gun comes out and he shoots.
At that point, 𝕉𝕬𝕚𝕚 takes off running, and he's got a limp.
You can see him even point and shoot as Alex is running just out of frame where he collapses and dies.
It's soon clear the shooter wasn't working alone.
The shooter essentially is seen turning and running towards the PT Cruiser.
The passenger door swings open, and the shooter jumps into the car, and this PT Cruiser speeds away.
Detectives now know that they have multiple suspects to look for before they can solve this crime.
On March 2nd, 2017, Dallas homicide detectives are trying to solve the tragic murder of 19-year-old 𝕉𝕬𝕚𝕚
I got a phone call and said, your son has been shot. And I'm just, heart just pounding, and I'm crying, and I'm outraged.
She was just screaming, can't breathe. I said, what's going on? Dre just got killed. She's like, what? It was crazy.
Fortunately, detectives are one step closer to locating the suspected killers after reviewing surveillance footage of the incident.
They could get a general description of their suspect. He appeared to be a black man, about 5'8" and 140 pounds.
They've also determined that he had an accomplice. After the shooting, he ran and jumped into a PT Cruiser that then sped away from the scene.
The footage is too grainy to make out the vehicle's license plate number, so investigators quickly circulate screenshots of the car online.
We can immediately put something on the blog and on Facebook, and it takes off.
Almost immediately, they begin receiving calls to their tip line.
The police get a call from someone who identified the driver as an Ashley Coleman.
When the police pulled Ashley's DMV records, they were able to determine that she was the owner of a PT Cruiser.
As patrol officers begin scouring the city for Ashley and her PT Cruiser, detectives begin looking into their new suspect. 27-year-old Ashley Coleman was no stranger to hardship.
Well, my childhood coming up was It was hard. It was 4 of us, and my mom, she worked, but, you know, she was a single mother. I was a victim of sexual abuse. I encountered it a few times coming up.
I think any time that someone places you in a scenario that steals your innocence, it's something that you carry with you for the rest of your life.
It affected my self-esteem in a major way. I always felt like I wasn't pretty enough, or I was too dark, or maybe it's my gap, or maybe it's because I didn't have a lot.
As a teen, Ashley began to act out.
I was in juvenile from 15 to 18, so I didn't experience adolescence. I started to express myself with music. The things that I couldn't talk about, I wrote about. And then one day I began to write and talk it instead of singing it.
She continued to write poetry, which ultimately turned into her wanting to become a rapper.
Eventually, Ashley worked up the courage to share her music online. But her positive messaging largely fell on deaf ears.
I was doing motivational music, but nobody wants to hear motivational music. I noticed like I would get like 200 views or 300 views.
She ended up having beef with another local rapper who was trying to tear Ashley down. But Ashley wrote a song about her.
Nobody's excited about anything positive. You know, most people aren't, not from where I'm from. And so I changed a lot of who I was and a lot of what I was doing to make it fit.
The change in direction got her noticed almost instantly.
I woke up with 100,000 views, like, maybe I should just go for it. And that's what I started to do. So then I started to build this whole image, just like a gangsta boo type.
Ashley's music became so popular that venues began booking her to perform live.
I was starting to get a buzz in my city.
Based off of this kind of new persona that she's developed, she's doing shows now throughout Dallas. Ashley was getting all this notoriety. She's become a local celebrity.
And it was at one of her local performances that Ashley met someone who would change her life forever.
I'm doing this one party, and this guy, you know, who's in the crowd, I glanced at him, and I thought past, like, oh, he's fine, you know.
And this young man starts throwing money at her in the stage.
So I'm like, oh, okay, like, okay, they feeling the song. I'm rocking with it.
Back at home after her set, Ashley noticed a DM from her handsome admirer, 𝕬𝕚𝕚𝕚𝕚.
He's like, dang, I've been trying to get at you for so long, and then I throw a little money and you finally like and hit me back.
Ashley agreed to meet up with 𝕬𝕚𝕚𝕚 for a date, and the rest was history.
That is kind of where things grow and develop in their connection.
He began to take me to do all these things that I missed out on, like go-karting, you know, movies. We would go watch like the airplanes take off, ponds to feed the ducks.
Before long, Ashley and 𝕬𝕚𝕚𝕚 became one of the new power couples in Dallas's hip-hop scene.
Every party we would go to, he was popular, so like everybody knew him, and it was like my clout with his clout, so it was like this big thing.
Is Hakeem Griffin White the young man from the surveillance video that gunned down ℧𝕬𝕚𝕚 Alex?
He matched the description of the individual detectives have been looking for. Police are shocked to discover that he's only 17, 10 years younger than Ashley.
Soon, investigators receive a bombshell piece of evidence that solidifies their theory.
Ashley and Hakeem are flaunting guns on Facebook and are talking about going to shoot someone.
I say, what the? I'm like, man, this cat is crazy. What is he on? put the guns down. If you gotta shoot or kill somebody, you don't need them. If you gotta put an image out just to get some friends, you don't need them. Everybody wants this bad image until it's time to go meet the judge. That's when they want to cry for their mamas and stuff. You wasn't crying when you was out there doing the crime, so don't cry now, you know? You do stuff like that, you go kill somebody, just put the shoe on the other foot, worry about if it was you.
In March of 2017, Dallas investigators suspect 𝕬𝕚𝕚𝕚 and her boyfriend, Hakeem Griffin White, are behind the murder of 19-year-old 𝕬𝕚𝕚𝕚 Alex.
They confirm that Ashley owns the same type of vehicle that was spotted fleeing from the crime scene. And Hakeem is a match for the description of the shooter.
Their theory is soon bolstered by an unexpected piece of evidence. A video posted on Facebook Live shows Ashley and Hakeem boasting about a life of crime.
The video had been recorded just a few hours before the shooting.
The two of them are loading weapons. They were talking about wanting to murder or harm someone.
That's how I do things, bro. I sit the bullets down to this on the side, bro. I said the bullet, look, I really need, you see, I don't want to touch. So I really need to, you hear me? Man, that was y'all. See, talking bullet that way every last time.
The video was like he in a rage and, oh yeah, and you flicking the gun.
I told myself, if I go back to this for life, look, real talk, bro.
The gun Hakeem has in the video is a .380, the same caliber as the casings found at the murder scene.
I'm ready to move aside now, bro. I'm gonna let you know. It's me. I'm gonna let you know who did it.
Detectives are convinced the person Hakeem is threatening in the video is 𝕬𝕚𝕚𝕚. It's a hard pill to swallow for 𝕬𝕚𝕚𝕚's family.
Hakeem was a friend of his, but was a young guy that in my house I fed, slept, clothed, you know, so that hurt me even more.
Hakeem and 𝕬𝕚𝕚𝕚 essentially grew up together, but they hadn't been close in a while.
I had just seen him walking and I was talking to him and, you know, telling him how much I missed them and, you know, keep your head up, stay out of trouble.
I said, what the? I'm like, man, this cat is crazy. What is he on? I don't know if they was on drugs or what, but I still can't figure out why would they do that to my nephew.
Investigators fear that if they don't find Ashley and Hakeem soon, there could be more victims.
We had covert units that were going out trying to find them at these different locations.
They're surveilling all known addresses.
On March 3rd, police finally get a hit on the couple's whereabouts.
The police find the PT Cruiser in front of one of the addresses.
Investigators want to make sure the suspects are in the house before they make a move.
They stake out the residence, waiting for Ashley or Hakeem to make an appearance.
But as they lay in wait, another vehicle pulls up. It's a large U-Haul truck.
A driver gets out of the U-Haul and goes into the house.
That's when police spot Ashley Coleman.
She and the U-Haul driver began loading things into the truck.
Investigators suspect that this means Ashley and Hakeem are planning on making a run for it.
We knew that they were planning on going somewhere because they loaded up a U-Haul.
When Ashley and the U-Haul driver are finished, investigators trail them as they drive off.
Ashley drives separately from the U-Haul.
The police begin to follow the vehicles, the PT Cruiser in front of the U-Haul and the police behind.
It's pretty easy to follow a U-Haul and not lose a U-Haul.
Ashley and the PT Cruiser are a different story.
Or we lose the PT Cruiser.
With Ashley now in the wind, police hit their sirens and pull over the U-Haul for further investigation.
So we get the U-Haul and it ends up being this homeless guy.
He appears to be confused as to what's going on.
According to the homeless man, he had just met Ashley and her boyfriend earlier that day.
They're like, hey, will you help us move? We'll pay you, feed you, whatever.
Thinking nothing of it, this homeless man agreed to help them with their move. He had no idea there were suspects in a murder case.
After arranging for the U-Haul and its contents to be transported back to police headquarters, investigators continue surveillance on Ashley's address.
They're hoping that Ashley or Hakeem will return before they flee the area.
Around 4 p.m., they're in luck.
They see a white car pull up to the house.
Ashley gets out and goes into the house. When she comes outside, she gets back into the white car and they drove off.
This time, police move in quickly.
They hit their siren and instructed the vehicle to pull over.
The driver of the vehicle follows police orders, but Ashley has other ideas.
When the police attempt to stop the vehicle, Ashley jumps out of the car.
She takes off running, and now police are at risk of losing her for a second time.
On March 3rd, 2017, Dallas police finally have their murder suspect, Ashley Coleman, in their crosshairs.
The police lost her once in her PT Cruiser, but then saw her again getting into a white sedan.
When the police attempt to stop the vehicle, Ashley jumps out of the car and runs away, evading the police officers again.
She just kind of disappeared.
To investigators' dismay, the driver of the white sedan seems clueless.
So similarly to the experience of the U-Haul driver, this driver of the white car had no information about what was going on.
He too met Ashley for the first time that day, just after she evaded the police the first time.
He's like, I don't know, this lady just flagged me down and said she needed help. So like I was trying to do the Good Samaritan thing. She said, I need a ride, my car broke down.
The driver of the white car was able to give the detectives the location of the PT Cruiser.
As Ashley and Hakeem continue to evade police, they remain active on social media.
Hakeem and Ashley decide to take to social media in an attempt to defend themselves from the allegations surrounding this murder.
They're denying the murder, any involvement with this shooting. She didn't shoot anybody. It's all her rap persona. It's all related to this character that she built, and it's not who she is at all.
The drama behind ℧𝕬𝕚 Alex's murder grows Ashley's already substantial online following.
It definitely quadrupled her social media following overnight. Now the whole city's heard of her. But everybody starts forming their opinion.
Thanks to the couple's unwillingness to lay low, investigators stay hot on their trail.
Some of our covert guys, this is their full-time job, right? It's just kind of staying under the radar and just kind of figuring out where people are going. And they ended up finding them at this motel.
This time, police move in right away.
So I'm sitting in a hotel. I'm asleep, actually. I had took like 6 Seroquels because I was on those medications at the time for depression. So when they came, I couldn't even move how I wanted to.
She was so out of it, she didn't even have the wherewithal or knowledge to be able to articulate anything as she was being arrested.
The arrests are welcome news to ℧𝕬𝕚's grieving family.
God is good. I just said God is good, you know? So we ain't got to worry about nobody else's family getting hurt.
It didn't ease my pain by them catching them, but it made me feel good that you're not out and to do it to anyone else.
Due to Ashley's concerning mental state, she's sent to the hospital for evaluation, while police transport Hakeem back to the station.
When they first started to interrogate him, he denied any involvement in the Alex murder.
You know, he lied for a while. I don't remember it being a real long denial. And then he was generally just more helpful.
Hakeem admits that he'd known 𝕉𝕊𝕚 and Alex ever since childhood, but their relationship became rocky a few years prior.
He just had this ongoing beef with him over just rumors.
I cannot tell you what happened. I know probably 2 years to 3 years back, they did have a little fight.
They just haven't gotten along since.
When asked about his girlfriend's involvement, Hakeem downplays Ashley's part in the crime.
He was saying that, you know, Ashley had no idea that any of this was going to happen. But obviously you're doing this video where you're talking about killing other people, and then you immediately turn around and go kill somebody.
Once Ashley is released from the hospital, detectives bring her in for questioning.
To their surprise, she doesn't have anything good to say about her boyfriend, Hakeem.
According to Ashley, the honeymoon stage in her relationship with Hakeem didn't last long.
I started to see like red flags. He lied about his age for one. He told me he was getting ready to be 19, when really he was 17.
She's 27, he's 17. That's a 10-year difference.
As time went on, the red flags became more and more bold.
Ashley says the week before the murder, Hakeem got into an altercation with another one of his friends.
He tells me, take me up here so I can talk to him. I'm like, okay, you know, they're friends, then he's gonna talk to him.
Ashley says when they arrived to meet up with Hakeem's friend, the conversation immediately became heated.
They exchanged words, but it seemed like his friend is trying to work it out when really Hakeem is like on 10. And so I'm like, well, Hakeem, just get back in the car. And before I could really get like my whole sentence out, he's shooting. I was scared. I was like, that's your friend. What are you doing? So he jumps in the car and he's like, follow him. I'm like, no, you know. So he slaps me for not following him. That actually was the first time that I noticed that he was being abusive.
Ashley tells detectives that night was only the beginning of the hell she'd endure at the hands of her man.
I closed my eyes and I remember praying, like, God, if this is meant for me to die, please let it be fast.
On March 5th, 2017, Dallas homicide detectives are questioning 27-year-old Ashley Coleman, a suspected accomplice in the murder of 19-year-old 𝕉𝕊𝕚 and Alex. But according to Ashley, she too has been a victim of the alleged shooter, Hakeem Griffin White.
Ashley tells detectives that she and Hakeem were involved in an abusive relationship. She became very afraid of Hakeem because of his volatile nature.
Ashley says eventually she decided enough was enough and tried to break things off with Hakeem.
Me and him's in the car and I'm kind of like at the point where I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm slacking on my music and, you know, I just can't do it.
But Hakeem wasn't having it.
He flipped out, you know, he get in my face and he headbutted me. I had never been headbutted before and it hurts. He broke my nose. He just went crazy. He just started hitting me, fighting me, and knocked out a tooth at the back, and bust my lip, and pulled my hair out.
Ashley tells detectives after that, Hakeem suddenly hit the gas.
He's driving, we're on this back road, and he's going like 100 miles an hour in his PC Cruiser, passing through these four-way stop signs. I just put on my seatbelt, and I closed my eyes, and I remember praying, like, God, if this is meant for me to die, please let it be fast.
Seconds later, Hakeem veered off the road.
I'm screaming. So he veered off, and we go into the grass, and the car cuts off. So that was God saying, get out the car.
But at that point, Ashley felt trapped.
There's research that supports that. It literally is life or death. The most dangerous time for an individual in domestic violence is when they're leaving.
It was like I was doomed if I did, if I didn't.
So she's got her identity of the physical abuse that's happening between the relationship and her and Hakeem. And then she's got this other persona where she's a badass female rapper that she's trying to continue to propagate for her artistry.
Ashley says the following day, Hakeem brought both her worlds crashing down.
So I go in the house and he's making this video. He's on there like showing all these bullets on camera, saying like, yeah, this is what's going on and this is what I'm gonna do.
Ashley admits she joined in on the video recording.
So I'm like, yeah, such. I'm trash talking. I mean, I have this gangster group type of thing going on, and I'm already rap beefing with such and such and such and such, so I'm just trying to make it real.
According to Ashley, after they were done recording the video, they left to head to her sister's house.
I'm driving on the freeway, and I get off and I pull up on Bunny View.
They just happened to see Drake Houston in the parking lot, and Hakeem tells Ashley to pull over.
Ashley was on the phone with her mom at the time.
She's like, I just had a dream. You need to leave that boy alone. It's either you going to jail or you going to be dead.
Ashley says it was then that she noticed what was happening outside of the car.
I hear this guy saying, please, King, please. So I'm like, Mom, I'm going to call you back. Hakeem, he has this gun up in broad daylight, and Drake Houston has his hands up. This had something to do from something that he felt like he wronged him a year ago, before I even came into his life. I'm like, Hakeem, he's not paying me any attention. He looks at me, but then he looks forward again.
Ashley tells detectives that she's watching in horror as Hakeem shoots Drake Houston.
He shoots. And he runs back and he jumps in the car and he tells me to drive. And I'm like, Hakeem, what did you do? I'm shaking so bad. And he's like, the devil told me to take it, so ha ha ha, and start laughing. Like this evil laugh. The gun was still smoking, literally.
However, Ashley claims she didn't realize Drake Houston's injuries were fatal at the time.
Before I drove off, he looked me in my eyes. And I looked at him, I was just scared. I could tell he was scared. That look hunted me for so long.
Following the incident, Ashley says she dropped Hakeem off and then she went back home, still shaken up.
I go back to the house and I go to sleep because I'm exhausted. He's been taking me through it.
But the next day, she was awakened by a torrent of social media alerts.
The whole city was talking about her.
She and Hakeem were wanted for murder.
My phone is pinging, bing, 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 bing. I'm viral.
Case because this whole case almost played itself out on social media. Sometimes when you put it out on that global scale, you don't know who is going to react to it in the way that they're going to react to it. And now everybody knows. Just know that there's a consequence to everything that you put out there into social media. And once you ring that bell, you can't unring it.
March 5th, 2017. Detectives in Dallas, Texas are questioning Ashley Coleman about the shooting death of 19-year-old Drake Houston Alex at the hands of Ashley's boyfriend, Hakeem Griffin White.
Ashley claims that she had no idea that he was going to open fire, and after she drove him from the crime scene, she claimed that she had no idea that he was dead.
The next morning, Ashley says she awoke to a flurry of notifications on her social media.
My phone is pinging, bing, 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 bing. I'm like, oh, something went viral on my page again because things have been going viral. Well, it's not nothing viral, I'm viral. There's all these people tagging me in the police because they seen my picture. They knew who I was because I was Facebook famous because of the music.
When asked why she hadn't turned herself in, Ashley tells detectives that she was scared.
I was confused on where to go, how to play it. We go to friends and he was so paranoid. And he's like, let me kill her and take her car, the girl who was helping. I'm like, why do you want to do that? And no, you've done enough. Like, this is ridiculous at this point.
However, detectives don't believe Ashley is being entirely honest with them.
She's trying to manipulate me. She's trying to get out of going to jail by saying that she's pregnant. She was not pregnant. The hospital is like, no, she's no signs that she's ever been pregnant. It's on her social media that she's putting out this video of them loading up the guns. She's actively like trying to throw us off by finding all these other cars. She's constantly asking people for help under some false pretense.
At the end of the day, both Ashley and Hakeem were charged with murder.
Ashley decides to plead guilty to the charges in exchange for a 19-year sentence.
I didn't go to trial, I just took a plea deal because I was scared, I didn't know my rights. So I really kind of got railroaded. I should have fought, but I didn't understand it or the system.
However, Hakeem Griffin White decides to take his chances in court.
The defense isn't saying that this wasn't Hakeem who was in the videos and committed this crime. They are simply trying to persuade the jury to convict on the basis of manslaughter instead of murder.
If he's convicted of manslaughter, he is facing a 20-year sentence versus a potential life sentence if he's convicted of murder.
He had his head down the whole time. You couldn't even look me in my eyes. You couldn't even get up on the stand to at least tell me to my face that you were sorry. I'm not just anybody. You know me. You know who I am. For you not to even tell me that you were sorry hurt me the most.
Based on the surveillance video that literally caught Hakeem in the act, along with his recorded confession to police about his involvement, it doesn't take the jury long to come to a decision.
Hakeem is found guilty of murder and sentenced to 75 years in prison.
They view Hakeem as an individual who intended to harm and intended to shoot, to kill. The verdict is bittersweet for Drake Houston's still grieving family.
Emotions was everywhere. Yes, you getting sentenced was a great feeling, but it still didn't solve anything. I mean, I still feel the same way I feel. It didn't bring my son back.
What we are going through, this is a daily thing. A lot of people try to tell my sister, oh, it get easy, it get easy. It don't. His smile, I miss his smile. And him, period. That was my nephew, you know.
My son was a kid. He was lovable. He was outgoing. He didn't deserve to die. So as long as I'm living, I'm gonna keep my son's name alive.
Ashley Coleman is now challenging her conviction.
Ashley is currently trying to seek a pardon, claiming that she was a victim of domestic violence.
At the end of the day, you always have a choice. It may feel like you do not, but that's normally just because the choice you have to make is so difficult. Choosing for yourself how you want to show up, how you want to receive love, how you want to experience life can make such a fundamental difference of where you go in the world.
I actually wrote a piece that I wanted to say before we ran out of time. It's kind of a warning. I sit in prison because of a guy's weakness, abuse, and fear. We are not puppets for men. We are not their vessels to manipulate. Every woman that has been manipulated into believing that hurt is love, I'm fighting for my freedom and yours too. One finger can't move a pebble, but one hand can move the world.
If you and your man find social media fame together, it might feel like an exciting ride. But love isn't a ride, it's a journey. And when passion clouds judgment, causing us to lose sight of where we're going, we risk completely losing our way. After years of struggling with addiction, 𝕊𝕤𝕚𝕚 seeks sobriety and finds an intoxicating new love.
Their relationship was one that she never experienced before.
But when passion fades, 𝕊𝕤𝕚 is lured into a violent rock bottom that leaves Chicago's West Side reeling.
He pulled out the gun and he shot into the car, and they were on the run.
I just couldn't believe this. It was hard seeing my sister's face on news.
And later, in Lakewood, Washington, store manager Tony Marie Williams-Irby looks for a man who will bring some excitement into her life.
It was a perfect case of opposites attract.
And when her new love wants to steal more than her heart, Tony Marie will do whatever it takes to please him.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars were in play.
Customers are terrified, and Tony Marie is acting like she doesn't know anything about this.
There are hundreds of thousands of women in prison at any given time in the U.S. These are the true stories of women who committed heinous crimes in the name of love. For my man. 𝕊𝕤𝕚𝕚 and her sisters have a happy childhood, growing up in the Humboldt Park neighborhood of Chicago.
It was a really nice neighborhood. Me and my sisters, we would go to the park and have fun. It was very nice growing up.
But visits to the park are secondary for 𝕊𝕤𝕚, who was raised in a deeply religious household.
5 minutes and we need to go. We would go to church mostly every day of the week. She loved singing. She stood out in a choir. She was lead singer. She had a lot going for herself. She was a very positive person growing up.
The high-spirited church girl shines amongst her peers.
She was friends with everybody. She was just the life of the party. She had a bright future. She's very smart. She taught me a whole lot.
However, as 𝕊𝕤𝕚 grows older, the fun-loving teen begins to find church life restrictive.
She was very outspoken. She wanted to be like her other friends, you know, outside of the church, you know. She wanted to just have fun.
Like many children that grow up in the church, 𝕊𝕤𝕚 rebelled. She started hanging out with the wrong crowd. Then she got involved in alcohol, which of course led to drugs.
The popular teen could now be found just about anywhere, except within the walls of worship.
She would hang out and be gone with her friends, and I would have to go and look for her.
Adolescent rebellion is quite normal. And so it's this constant pushing of the boundaries. And that pushing of the boundaries leads to very dangerous behaviors. And those dangerous behaviors then end up being chronic dangerous behaviors.
What starts as recreational drug use soon becomes an all-consuming habit when 𝕊𝕤𝕚 becomes hooked on heroin. To support her dangerous addiction, 𝕊𝕤𝕚 shoplifts from trendy clothing stores at the local mall.
She developed a reputation as a booster, selling the clothes that she stole, and she was successful at it.
It made her pretty popular in the community, but it also made her pretty popular with police.
She did what she needed to do to support that habit, and it got her locked up a few times.
And through all of her brushes with the law, her closest sibling still has her back.
Anytime my sister needed anything, help, I was there for her. You know, I was like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna make it, we're gonna get through this.
So finally, in her early 20s, After several years of disappointing her family and herself, 𝕬𝕬𝕝 makes the decision to enter into drug rehab.
𝕬𝕬𝕝 committed herself to getting better, getting clean, staying that way. Things were looking good.
I was very happy for her. Deep down inside, I know she wanted to, do what was right.
Then one day, during a group therapy meeting, 𝕬𝕬𝕝 catches the eye of a handsome fellow patient, 39-year-old 𝕬𝕠𝕚 Banks.
𝕬𝕠𝕚 Banks was this tall, good-looking guy. She immediately was drawn to him.
She wanted to get to know him better, so she introduced herself to 𝕬𝕠𝕚.
The two begin talking after meetings and develop an intimate rapport. They build a relationship on a foundation of friendship and honesty.
He had trouble with the law, trouble with gangs, and that he was in prison for murder.
Most women would have run away from a situation like this. But what happens in many situations when we're talking about drug abuse treatment, it's about not making value judgments, and it really is about redemption and forgiveness.
𝕬𝕬𝕝 and 𝕬𝕠𝕚's budding relationship seems more stable and intimate than anything she's felt before. But the two will have to wait before they can express their feelings physically.
When we look at drug abuse treatment, it is very frowned upon for the patient or the person going through the rehabilitation to engage in romantic liaisons, because it's really easy for that drug dependency behavior to now be transferred to a codependency behavior in a sexual or loving relationship with someone else.
𝕬𝕠𝕚 and 𝕬𝕬𝕝 tried hard to abide by the rules, and they grew even stronger.
When I met him, he was a okay guy, but I just felt like he was older than her. He was too old for her at the time. I kind of felt like something was wrong with him. I just didn't feel like that was the right person for her.
And when they're each released, 𝕬𝕬𝕝 is sober and feeling on top of the world, ready to face the streets of Chicago and remain drug-free with her man.
She continued her relationship with 𝕬𝕠𝕚, and things were going well. They both supported each other in their sobriety.
Now, out of the strict confines of treatment, they let the sparks fly.
They were finally able to have that physical contact that they weren't able to have during rehab.
But as time passes, the couple finds themselves falling off the wagon.
𝕬𝕠𝕚 began drinking again, which ultimately led to 𝕬𝕬𝕝 falling back into her old habits of using drugs.
𝕬𝕠𝕚 relapsed, 𝕬𝕬𝕝 relapsed, and all hell pretty much broke loose.
And in no time, the gentle, supportive 𝕬𝕠𝕚 that 𝕬𝕬𝕝 met in rehab has transformed into a monster.
𝕬𝕠𝕚, being back on drugs and alcohol, would take that anger out on 𝕬𝕬𝕝.
What the hell is wrong with you?
After a few months, the pair is using drugs full-time and crashing on friends' couches. 𝕬𝕬𝕝 uses her 5-finger discount to keep the couple afloat.
She did the shoplifting, which she was known to do well. She had to support herself and support her man. And 𝕬𝕠𝕚 didn't want to have it any other way.
But no one could predict how this rocky relationship is about to spin out of control and collide into heartbreaking tragedy.
She thought she had something good, and it turned out to be the worst thing ever.
It was very devastating.
Chicago junkies Shakina Feazell and her boyfriend Deon Banks are on a bender in need of cash, and no one is safe from this toxic twosome.
𝕬𝕬𝕝 went back to her old ways of stealing things to support her habit and to support her man's habit.
But soon the couple's thirst for drugs will have no boundaries. March 23rd unfolds in the usual way for the couple.
𝕬𝕬𝕝 and 𝕬𝕠𝕚 had spent the night at a friend's home. The next day, they woke up and 𝕬𝕠𝕚 tells 𝕬𝕬𝕝, get up, we're going to the mall.
Get up.
Shakina knows that any trip to the mall means she'll have to ply her illicit trade.
So she thought, I need to get on my job and go shoplift so we can sell some things. It's time for us to, get high.
It's quite possible that Shekinah may have engaged in shoplifting again simply to get the money to be able to get the next fix. And as I see with many people who are drug addicted, to avoid the painful withdrawal from being drug addicted.
At approximately 2 p.m., Shekinah and Deon arrive at their destination.
Ford City Mall on the southwest side of Chicago, it's always crowded. They've got great stores, and it has the movie theater that's next to it on the property. So it's very popular.
It's then that Deon tells his leading lady they're going to mix it up.
I'm thinking it was a change of plan. I don't know exactly what happened. They were going to shoplift in one of the stores in the mall, but he decided to carjack someone.
Shekinah probably felt a little relief because they were going to use that money from the car to fund their habit.
After driving around the parking lot for a few minutes, Deon spots his target.
Deon saw the perfect car that he wanted.
Stop the damn car.
Oh my gosh, what the
Shekinah
hell?
watches as her man pulls a gun from his waistband and marches toward the car.
He approaches the car. There's a woman inside. So he's screaming at her, cursing at her, "Get the F out the car."
Get the F out the car! Get out the car! You hear me?
She's not moving fast enough, and Deon just snaps.
Deon shoots through the window, shooting the lady in her thigh. Deon then drags her out of the car, gets in the car and pulls off.
He just leaves her on the ground.
My sister was in shock. She didn't know that this was going to take place.
As the armed hood takes off towards Shekinah in the stolen vehicle, he's shocked to see two frightened boys sitting in the back seat. The woman Deon had just shot was their mother.
They seen all this happen. I can't even imagine what they were thinking at that time. It had to be very devastating for these kids.
It takes just a split second for him to make his move.
Get up!
Deon stops, lets the two little boys out, and then proceeds to leave in the stolen car.
Shekinah was more afraid than she had ever been. She didn't know what to do, but she knew that she had to quickly get in gear and follow Deon.
The two waste no time speeding away from the scene. Back in the Ford City Mall parking lot, the two little boys race to their injured mother's side.
Bystanders that were at the mall saw exactly what happened. The two little boys, of course, are around their mom, consoling her.
Onlookers called for an ambulance. The boys crowded their mother, clinging onto her, and she was rushed to the hospital.
Beloved 40-year-old mother of two, Rose Newbern, has lost a lot of blood and is hanging on to life by a thread. Her children are examined, and while traumatized, the 4- and 5-year-olds are now safe from harm. With the dangerous duo now long gone from the scene, police begin their investigation.
Witnesses tell them what type of car was stolen, and police put out a be on the lookout alert.
Across town, Shekinah remains closely behind Deon as he speeds erratically through the streets of Chicago.
My sister was afraid. I feel like she was threatened. She knew that he had a gun.
Shekinah's heart was pounding at this point.
And the mayhem has only just begun. And later, in Lakewood, Washington, Toni Marie Williams Irby throws caution to the wind to live dangerously with her lover.
There was an excitement, just the idea of maybe doing something illicit.
She looked out onto a sea of panicked and bloody customers.
In Chicago, Illinois, after witnessing her boyfriend shooting and carjacking a young mother, Shekinah shadows her man as they continue to race down the shady path that's unfolding in front of them.
Why, in this situation, would you follow someone who committed a violent act? Perhaps the male in this situation is extremely violent, and the female realizes that she might be a victim of that herself if she doesn't cooperate. And secondly, the payoff for both of them, if they got away with this, would be to get their necks fixed.
The crooked couple drives on the expressway before exiting approximately 45 minutes later. Once alone, 𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 attempts to talk to Dion and figure out their next steps. How they can turn the car into cash to score drugs without getting caught.
𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 is trying to calm Dion down, trying to calm this monster down.
But any semblance of the man she loves is gone.
Dion was enraged.
Dion suggested that they unload that car, so he instructed 𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 to take him to a chop shop.
𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 tries reasoning with him.
I'll kill you! I'll kill you and kill me!
Finally, this seems to work, and she gets an idea.
𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 says, okay, I know of a chop shop, but she didn't know of a chop shop.
After driving around looking for this fictitious garage that will buy their stolen wheels, 𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 has a plan to ditch Dion.
As they're going along, large park, heavily populated area, middle of the day.
She speeds up, hits 2 parked cars. She hits one so hard that her airbag deploys. She gets out, pretending to be injured.
𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 crawls out of the car and onto the pavement, pretending to be injured.
Dion comes over to find out what's going on.
He tells the small crowd that surrounds them that he'll take care of her.
𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 screaming, no, no, no. Dion picked her up anyway, put her in the car, and off they went.
Dion ends up gaining control once again with 𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝. She's very fearful at this point for her safety, for her life.
I believe my sister was in shock.
As the couple makes their exit in the stolen Intrepid, 𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 pleads with Dion not to hurt her.
𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 tried to wrestle the gun out of Dion's hands.
Meanwhile, the couple's trail of mayhem has finally triggered the attention of law enforcement, who are already on the lookout for the stolen vehicle.
A cop pulled up next to them. Dion saw the car, he hit the gas and sped off. Lost control, hit a pillar, he got out the car and ran.
𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 stayed there. At this point, it's over for her. She just wants this to be over. She's taken into custody. Dion is captured a short time later after a foot pursuit.
When the couple is brought to the police station, they are told that the owner of the Intrepid, Rose Newbern, died hours earlier, bleeding out from the gunshot wound in her thigh, inflicted by Dion. 𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 faces multiple charges, including first-degree murder, aggravated vehicular hijacking, and possession of a stolen vehicle. Dion Banks faces the same charges. At trial, Dion is convicted of 5 counts of first-degree murder and aggravated discharge of a firearm. He is sentenced to death. 𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 is found guilty of first-degree murder and armed vehicular hijacking. After successfully appealing her case, her sentence is reduced to 27 years. Several years later, the governor abolishes the death penalty in the state of Illinois. Dion Banks is now serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The choice 𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 made to prioritize her man over her sobriety has led her to a life behind bars.
I believe she was a victim of domestic violence and at times was very afraid for her life from what we know. But secondly, that she was addicted to drugs and therefore had a lot of the emotional challenges that come with drug abuse and drug dependence, and someone who enables you and helps you to get the drugs.
Away from her sister and the rest of her family, she now regrets ever meeting the once gentle and charming Dion Banks.
𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝 had everything going for her. Loving family, church background, but she became under the thumb of an abusive, controlling, much older man that she lost herself. She threw her entire life away for her man.
I really think that she thought it was more of love than what it turned out to be.
𝔼𝕬𝕬𝕝's hope for true love crashed and burned when she fell under the spell of a man who fed into her addiction. Next, Toni Marie Williams-𝕤 starts a destructive chain of events when she falls in love with a charismatic crook. Originally from Chicago, Illinois, Toni Marie Williams-𝕤 has lived a stable and commonplace existence for most of her years.
She was a normal, average, middle-aged woman who was doing the best she could to take care of her kids. She might not have been a person that would have stood out into the crowd, but when she did herself up, she was attractive and even beautiful.
She worked in retail in the Chicago area and was a divorced mother of 2.
She was very dependable, but as a lot of women in their mid to late 30s, she probably wanted some excitement.
Trying to be that superwoman, the person who's a hands-on mom, who's a working woman, who's responsible for the whole family. It can be so stressful that it can really put you at risk for having a midlife crisis even before you hit midlife.
Likely yearning for more, the squeaky clean mom begins to question her consistent approach to walk the straight and narrow path. And as she approaches the big 4-0, she finds a man to do just that, single father Odious Walker.
Odious had a criminal history, and he had gang ties.
It was a perfect case of opposites attract.
He had a little swagger. Toni liked his bad boy style.
Yet despite the pair's obvious differences, the two share similar values.
They were single parents, and they shared a commitment to providing for their children the best that they could.
The juxtaposition between his bad boy style and being a family man kind of just mirrored the two together.
The happy lovebirds soon find themselves spending nearly all of their time together.
With Toni Marie and Odious, things developed and matured rather quickly. She fell in love with this bad boy, and she was really looking forward to building that stable family with Odious.
Toni Marie finally finds herself dating someone who doesn't always play by the rules. But little does she know, her eagerness to walk on the wild side will come at a heavy cost.
Their fantasies, their plans took a dark turn.
Toni was willing to risk it all for her man.
Chicago native Toni Marie Williams-𝕤 is happy to have found an exciting new man, Odious Walker. What begins as a hot and heavy romance glides into more serious territory within a year.
Their relationship became very, very close. Their children were coming together. Everything seemed like it was going well for them.
The couple packs up their 5 children and heads to Washington State, where they lovingly begin their happily ever after.
They packed up and headed to Washington, where Odious had a few relatives.
In a place like Chicago, it's really difficult for a former gang member or a gang banger to turn a new leaf, to start a new lifestyle. Going to Washington State was a place that they truly hoped that they could start a new life.
The newly blended family settles in a posh town just outside of Tacoma.
University Place has always been considered a little oasis.
This is an area where people want to build their families. The crime rate's low. You don't hear on the news about all kinds of murders and shootings and robberies happening.
Toni quickly secures a well-paying management position at a big box retailer in the nearby town of Lakewood.
She was a merchandise supervisor, and she managed a small team.
She had good experience. She was trusted. She was respected.
It's a multifaceted job that requires Toni to be aware of all aspects of the store's operations.
She attended meetings. She was privy to the financial workings of the store.
While Toni is out earning a steady income, Odious is a stay-at-home dad.
Odious had been injured, but he really had the job of managing things at home while Toni went out and was actually in the labor force and was the breadwinner, so to speak.
It's an arrangement that works well for the couple and their family.
Toni and Odious probably thought that it was very important for someone to remain home with the children so that they had a loving environment.
In the middle of a move, it's really important that we look at the needs of the blended family. because they are used to a certain lifestyle, they're used to their family being a certain way, so now we're pulling them, sometimes ripping them out of the comfort zone. It's important that we set the rules in a way so that this new blended family can coexist in a peaceful manner.
From the outside looking in, Tony and Odious are settling in well to their new suburban life together.
They were able to provide for themselves and their family pretty well. They could buy their children the latest toys and gadgets and also have money left over to go out to dinner every once in a while.
Tony and Odious loved to entertain. They loved barbecues. They loved to do it up big. If they were gonna cook, they were gonna have steaks or lobster or something nice.
But the pressures of living well soon begin to take their toll on the family.
The lifestyle that they live and the money that Tony is making simply is not working.
For Odious, that meant dreaming up ways that maybe he could bring in some more money.
Due to his disability, Odious is left with few options for legitimate employment, so he taps into his bad boy past.
Marijuana sales became Odious's way of making ends meet.
He keeps his operation small, quiet, and his lady love uninvolved.
Odious wasn't a big-time drug dealer. He was just bringing in a pound or two from California and selling it in dime bags from their home. So it really was not bringing in that much money.
When one member of a couple engages in illicit or illegal behavior, it kind of forces the other partner to kind of go down that slippery slope with them. And we have to be aware that if the partner who is not doing anything wrong, but is aware of their partner doing something wrong, in many ways, they are an accomplice to that bad behavior.
With marijuana sales not bringing in enough green, the couple knows they'll need to find another way to support their lavish lifestyle, which is when Tony shares some tantalizing information with her beloved.
I got an idea.
She decided that she was going to fill in Odious about the confidential information relative to the financial situation over at the store.
Tony began to tell Odious details of the store's day-to-day operations. I mean, serious details. And she could probably see those dollar signs in Odious's eyes.
$200,000 came in and out of the store every day. Imagine what they could do with that money. Imagine what they could do for their family.
Together they started fantasizing, and then at some point the fantasy crossed over into real life, where they began to actually start planning a heist.
Tony started to divulge details about the armored car, how much money was involved, when would the armored car get there, when was it expected to leave, how many guards were involved in the whole process.
But money is likely only a portion of the illicit allure for the once squeaky clean mom.
It sounds like she did feel excited to be a part of this world that Odious had been a part of. Cops and robbers and money and adventure.
For a woman who's led her life and gone down the straight and narrow, never engaged in a criminal act or criminal behavior before, to now be aware that the person that you're involved with is living that kind of a life, it can be some sort of an adrenaline rush.
Over the course of a month, Tony and Odious spend their evenings devising a plan to rob the megastore.
Her job was to provide the initial intelligence, and then her job was to be quiet, stay in the background, do her job as normal.
It was up to Odious to carry out that plan and make sure that it worked.
But it's a job that's much too large for ambitious Odious to execute alone.
They were trying to get hundreds of thousands of dollars away from trained specialists in the armored car industry. So Odious enlisted the help of his 31-year-old cousin, Calvin Finley, and family friend, 20-year-old Marshawn Turpin.
We don't know that much about Turpin's history, but Calvin Finley had a long criminal history.
When the burgeoning Bonnie and Clyde promised the two men each a generous cut from the heist, they seem more than eager to help.
Tony provided the team with all of the details that they needed. So what was next was just to get down to the nuts and bolts to essentially tie everything in so that they can enact their plan.
But no one could predict the tragic events that would soon unfold.
They wanted to do a heist. They wanted to get a lot of money. I don't think she planned to have somebody be killed.
As summer approaches, the newly minted team of thieves set their sights on a target date for the heist they're planning at the retail store where Tony Marie Williams-Erdby works in Lakewood, Washington.
Days before they were set to actually execute the heist, Odious, Calvin, and Marshawn decided to scope out their store.
The crew needed to know details of how the driver and the guard who carried the money bags worked together.
They drove to the retailer in Lakewood. They observed the armored car delivery and pickup. They decided who was going in and how it was going to be handled. They had it timed and planned down to the minute.
On a sunny June day, 38-year-old armored truck security guard Kurt Husted goes about his daily routine. The popular retailer is one of many daily stops on his route.
He was very well loved. He was an outdoors person, he was a motorcycle enthusiast, and he was just on the verge of marrying his fiancée.
Kurt spent the past 16 years of his life working as an armored truck security guard. He was generally regarded by his fellow employees as someone who was dependable and someone they could trust.
At around 1:15 p.m., Odious, Calvin, and Marshawn begin to make good on the plan. Tony has already been on the clock for a few hours and tries to remain calm. She knows that soon the Clyde to her Bonnie will arrive, forever changing both of their lives.
This was the day her man was going to show up at that store, and she was going to have her hands on more money probably than she had ever seen at one time in her life.
She probably was filled with anxiety, but she was doing her best to just have an even keel that day.
Outside, Odious and his crew get into position.
That means they're in the parking lot, in their vehicle, and they're waiting.
The store was pretty busy.
June in Washington is one of the loveliest months very often. It's the beginning of summer. People are usually buying little kiddie pools, looking for bathing suits, planning barbecues, thinking about weddings. You know, you don't imagine it as the time for an armed robbery.
Like clockwork, at 1:30 p.m., the armored truck arrives near the front entrance of the store.
Odious pulled up and parked right behind it. Then Marshawn and Calvin got out and went into the store.
Due to the fact that it was a low-in-crime area, Kurt simply wore a bulletproof vest while he went into the store and his partner stayed in the armored truck.
Odious told Calvin he wants to be apprised of everything, so he's asked Calvin to call him on the cell phone and keep the line open, which is what Calvin has done.
Marshawn and Calvin locate Kurt on his way to exit the store, and that's when they decide that they're going to get this done.
Let's get this over with. All this busyness that was going on in the store, Calvin approached armored truck guard Kurt Husted.
Excuse me, sir.
As Kurt turned to find the source of that voice, Calvin raised his right arm, extended it, firing one shot. Kurt was shot at point-blank range. He collapsed instantly.
As Kurt lies motionless in a pool of his own blood, he isn't Calvin's only casualty.
The trajectory of the bullet then went from Kurt's head into the shoulder of an individual who was just standing in line waiting to check out.
Andre Ramos was holding his 18-month-old son at the time.
As the murderous three make their getaway, the stunned and panicked customers and employees are trying to make sense of the violence they've stumbled into.
The store was pretty busy.
Customers are huddled, running. They are hiding under racks of clothing, and they don't know what's going on. They're terrified.
Tony Marie Williams-Erdby hears the commotion caused by her man's crew while enacting their plan to commit a violent armed robbery. She watches as Calvin and Marshawn escape the chaotic scene with bags of money.
Odious already had the car in motion. It was rolling when the last person got out of that door. People at the scene could hear the sirens as the first responders began to arrive on the scene.
Customer Andre Ramos is rushed to the hospital.
Thankfully, after being checked, he was okay, but he would have to live with a bullet in his arm for years to come.
His 18-month-old son, who was in his arms at the time, was checked out and found to be unhurt.
Lakewood police begin their investigation amidst the utter chaos of the scene.
Police began processing the scene and interviewing witnesses. They wanted to hear from anyone who was nearby when that shot was fired.
None of the witnesses or customers could provide an identity to the individuals who had committed the crime. And Tony did what she could to just remain anonymous.
Tony Marie works her shift just as if everything were normal. She does exactly what the plan called for her to do.
It's really interesting that Tony Marie was able to still go to work, maintain some sort of a calm demeanor, even after the heist, which she had direct responsibility for.
As she punches out for the day, Tony has only one thing on her mind.
Tony received a ride home from her friend, and she's passionately reunited with Odious.
Next, the lovers turned masterminds focus their attention on the spoils from their cruise take.
Tony and Odious headed out to meet Calvin and Marshawn to figure out how they were going to divide up their loot. They had pulled in together $40,000, and they had to find a way to divide it up amongst themselves.
While not as much as they had hoped for, $20,000 is still quite a windfall for the couple, so they decide to celebrate.
They were not suffering a lot of remorse. 38-year-old Kurt lay dead in the storefront. They still considered it enough of a success to put on their good shoes and go out shopping.
They bought a new video game system, games, a digital camera, and they went out to a big dinner.
While Tony and Odious party it up, investigators hone in on the surveillance cameras located throughout the store.
When police reviewed the surveillance footage, they were able to see every single detail of this violent crime. Calvin and Marshawn had not bothered to cover their faces, and there were vivid and clear images of their likenesses on that footage.
Once police had an image of Calvin Finley, the shooter, they were able to take it to other officers who identified him fairly quickly because he was a sort of well-known criminal in the area.
Not ready to tip their hand, they locate and speak to one of Calvin's known associates, Roger Felton, to confirm Calvin's identity.
Roger not only identified Calvin, but told police that Odious and Tony Marie had approached him previously and asked him to be part of this criminal enterprise.
Be part of some type of scheme.
Roger stuns the officers when he reveals that the armed robbery's location wasn't chosen at random. It was an inside job.
Tony Marie Williams-Irby was soon identified as a suspect and brought into custody.
Armed with a search warrant, police go to Tony and Odious's University Place apartment, and there they find a safe, $20,000 in cash, and a semi-automatic weapon.
At 9:15 p.m., police conduct a felony stop on Odious. Upon arrest, he's found with $322 in cash and some loose change. The following morning, police arrest accomplice and shooter Calvin Finley. Caught red-handed, he sings like a canary.
Calvin directed police to the apartment where Marshawn Turpin had been staying. Hours later, they made the arrest. Marshawn initially denied having anything to do with this robbery homicide, that is, until he learned that everybody else had been arrested.
Calvin Finley pleads guilty to first-degree murder, first-degree assault, and first-degree robbery. He is sentenced to life without parole. Marshawn Turpin pleads guilty to charges of first-degree murder, first-degree assault, second-degree assault, and conspiracy to commit first-degree robbery. He is sentenced to 47 years in prison. For his part, Odious Walker is convicted of multiple charges, including first-degree murder, first-degree assault, and first-degree robbery. He's sentenced to life in prison without parole. Tony Marie Williams-Irby is charged with first-degree murder, first-degree robbery, and conspiracy to commit first-degree robbery. She'll have to make a difficult decision if she has any hope of spending less time behind bars.
Tony initially pled not guilty. However, after realizing the charges that she had against her, she decided it would be in her best interest to testify against her man, 𝕬𝕚𝕚𝕚. As a result of her cooperation with the DA's office, she had her charges dropped from 6 to 2, and she was sentenced to 20 years.
Tony pleads guilty to first-degree murder and first-degree robbery.
A lot of people live in this magical world where they actually think they're gonna hit lotto. So they sit back and they wait for their numbers to come up. In many ways, Tony Marie kind of did the same thing, but in fact, this thing was so out of control that the only thing that she ended up with wasn't the loot, but actual blood on her hands.
Bonnie and Clyde syndrome, perfect description when you look at this case. It seems like Tony kind of got off, if you will, on the idea that she would mention some details and then her man would somehow put together a plan and make this whole fantasy come to fruition.
If you believe in any kind of redemption at all, what you always want to hear is people really feel sorry, really understand the magnitude of their wrongdoing and feel remorse for it. And does she? I don't know.
There's nothing in the world like the love of a good man. A man that makes you feel cherished, safe, and secure. But what happens when that same love makes you feel bored, trapped, and restless? Is the grass really greener on the other side? Or is it teeming with danger and capable of turning your entire life upside down? When your search for excitement comes to an end, you may just wish you never went looking for it in the first place. July 3rd, 2012, 10:30 p.m. It's a humid summer night in the city of Atlanta, Georgia.
This is the night before the holiday. Everyone's excited. You know, you have that whole holiday laid-back vibe, just hanging out.
On the southeast side of Atlanta, in the Cabbagetown neighborhood, a group of friends are outside celebrating the pending holiday. But suddenly, the laid-back vibe is shattered in an instant when three strangers approach the home. The three men are wielding handguns and shouting wildly. The group of friends obey the gunmen and hurriedly enter the house.
Once inside the home, the victims were ordered to get on the ground.
The gunmen press their weapons to the victims' heads and demand their cooperation. And what happens next will shock everyone and send police scrambling for answers.
This has turned into this whirlwind situation.
Authorities will eventually uncover a tumultuous relationship that pushed one woman into a dangerous scheme with no escape.
She's thinking, what have I done? What have I gotten myself into?
23-year-old Atlanta resident Shayla Ryland was known for her fun-loving spirit.
She always had that big, pretty smile.
She was just a fun girl, and she talked a lot, and she was very honest, very spunky.
While the young mother liked to have fun, nothing was more important to her than her children.
Shayla is a terrific mom, very engaged, very present, very loving with her children.
Though Shayla and the children's fathers had parted ways, she had found comfort and support in a new man, 25-year-old Mario Phillips.
Mario was so sweet. His love was just so pure. He didn't care, you know, that I had kids or who they were by.
Shayla, Mario, and the children shared an apartment together and appeared to be one big happy family.
He loved the kids. He loved Shay. She would go to work
and he would be home with the kids.
He just did all of the things that a woman would really want her man to do to make life easier for her.
From the outside, it seemed like nothing could break the couple's bond. But on the inside, the single mom felt restless.
It was nothing wrong. I was so used to chaos, and I was so used to, argument. When I finally found somebody that I knew he was for me, I didn't know how to accept the love that he was giving.
The social butterfly couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing out.
He was just fine with us renting a movie and watching movies at home, whereas me, I want to be out on the scene and, go see friends and have fun. We just didn't have much excitement in our relationship at all.
There's this stability that's foreign to her. It's boring. She feels trapped.
However, in January of 2012, 𝕬𝕚 met a handsome neighbor who seemed to share her same zest for life. 27-year-old Aaron Wiley, also known to his friends as Bear.
After the first conversation with Bear, it was just like, wow, this guy is nice. He was funny. He was that excitement I was looking for.
The two had an instant connection, and 𝕬𝕚 quickly learned how Aaron got the nickname Bear.
He was strong, he was handsome.
He had swag, and he just had charm, charisma, and he was just able to say the right things.
The fact that 𝕬𝕚 had a boyfriend did not sway Aaron's advances.
Bear kind of rubbed his hand up my arm.
She then saw Aaron as brave and adventurous and sexy, and this thing intrigued her where he would chase her.
After a few weeks of innocent flirting, the two began a steamy affair.
She got pulled in and sucked into his world.
He was like the protector. And I think that we as women want to be protected.
It's not just sex, but if it's great sex, in addition to that, he says the things you want to hear. He has swag and he's domineering. That is like an aphrodisiac.
Soon, the lovers became more brazen and took their relationship outside the bedroom.
You have the barbecues going on, and everybody's just out there having a good time. But it was like every weekend, it was like kind of fun, getting that excitement that I wasn't getting with Mario.
She had actual fun with him, and that made her feel youthful and alive.
After a few months, Mario got wind of 𝕬𝕚's deception.
I was like, denying it, of course. That's not true. We're not together.
When Mario confronted 𝕬𝕚, the ensuing argument quickly escalated and soon attracted Aaron's attention.
Bear jumped in and was like, you disrespecting her, and it's not gonna happen like that. Like, you just go ahead and get your stuff and go.
That was probably what sealed the deal for 𝕬𝕚. He's brave and he's protecting her.
After a year and a half together, 𝕬𝕚 and Mario's relationship ended on the spot. Within a week, a heartbroken Mario moved out of the apartment and Aaron moved in. But not everyone approved of 𝕬𝕚's new man.
Aaron was not good with the kids. He would curse at them, curse around them. I don't know why 𝕬𝕚 allowed it.
What Aaron did for a living also raised eyebrows.
I assumed he was selling drugs. I just thought he was, one of the regular drug dealers.
I mean, it don't take a rocket scientist to see you making all this money and you don't have a job.
𝕬𝕚 knew what type of person Aaron was, but she loved him anyway.
Little did 𝕬𝕚 know her exciting new love would get her tangled up in a dangerous scheme. One where she would learn the hard way that sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
𝕬𝕚 getting involved with Aaron, this was the last thing she needed.
July 3rd, 2012, 11 p.m. Police have just been called to the scene of a violent armed robbery on the southeast side of Atlanta, Georgia. But this is no ordinary armed robbery.
The victims that were in the home were unharmed, but one victim was missing. He was taken away at gunpoint. At this point in time, the investigation gets very serious.
As officers sweep the house for clues, detectives speak to the victims.
The victims inside the home are concerned about their friend who was kidnapped.
They identified the kidnapping victim as 24-year-old Kurt Sanford.
The friends say that Kurt was the nicest guy. He was always the person to lend a hand and help someone out.
He's a good guy. They just couldn't believe that this happened to him.
Detectives put out a bolo for the 24-year-old and the 3 gunmen. Then suddenly, something truly unexpected happens.
A disheveled man comes bursting through the door.
They don't know who this person is. They don't know if the robbers will come back for more.
"23-year-old single mom Shayla Ryland ended her longtime relationship with good guy Mario Phillips when she began sneaking around with her new lover, 27-year-old bad boy Aaron Bear Wiley.
He's sexy and he's exciting and he's charismatic. And to Shayla, he's a breath of fresh air. He is what she's been craving.
He was a bit rough around the edges. He wasn't the father figure to the kids like Mario was, but then again, there was just something that she couldn't resist about him.
We were just having fun, so it was like something that I had wanted that I wasn't getting.
But little did Shayla know that her choice would unlock a string of events that would threaten everything that the single mother holds dear.
Shayla wanted a bad boy, but what comes along with that is not all roses.
July 3rd, 2012. Atlanta detectives are speaking to the victims of an armed robbery that escalated into a dangerous kidnapping.
They found out from victims at the home that one of the victims were taken away at gunpoint by 3 suspects.
The city is on high alert for kidnapping victim Kurt Sanford.
His friends are absolutely devastated, and they're wondering about his safety and his well-being.
The friends tell detectives the gunman demanded their wallets and cell phones and then started looting electronics from the home.
They want to see what else is in the house. They can take the easy grabs, the TV, the computers, cash.
As 2 of the men load the stolen items into a suitcase, one of the men makes a phone call.
He appeared to be talking to somebody outside, letting them know that they're about to come out.
The friends say that's when things took a terrifying turn.
So these guys start asking questions about who has the most money in their bank accounts. Kurt caught the eye of these guys.
They assumed, because of the way he was dressed, he may actually have some money.
Kurt's friends watched helplessly as the assailants led him outside at gunpoint.
They exit the house with the stolen items, and they force the victim inside the vehicle.
You can imagine these friends are like, what's gonna happen?
The robbers took all their cell phones, but there was a landline in the home which one of the victims used to call the police.
As the questioning comes to an end, detectives know they need to find Kurt before it's too late. But before police can make their next move, something unexpected happens.
A disheveled man comes bursting through the door. The man comes in disoriented. You can tell he's freaking out.
Police draw their weapons and order the man to put his hands up. But in the commotion, police discover they have it all wrong.
It was the kidnapped victim, Kurt Sanford.
Miraculously, the victim walks in the house. So you can imagine everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're okay, what's going on?
As Kurt tries to compose himself, detectives begin asking questions.
Keith begins to tell him how he was forced at gunpoint from the home by the 3 males. He described there was a female driver.
Kurt says the gunman and their female accomplice took him for a drive to multiple ATMs.
The guy who was in the front seat appeared to be calling all of the shots. He was letting the female driver know where to take him and when to take him.
The woman would stop the car while the men would take turns getting out of the car to get the cash.
According to Kurt, after multiple withdrawals, his accounts got locked out.
You can only take out so much per day.
At this point in time, the victim gets scared because he's thinking this might be the last time that he takes a breath of fresh air.
There was this conversation amongst the robbers of what to do with this guy, because they knew he could probably identify them later.
Kurt tells detectives an argument ensued, but ultimately he was shoved out of the car.
The two individuals in the back, they forced him outside the vehicle.
Kurt says after that, the vehicle sped off, and he ran all the way back for help.
Investigators are thinking, okay, we need to find out which ATM this victim was at and the suspects were at so that we can review the footage and maybe get some type of lead on who these people are.
They knew they would have video surveillance of these transactions.
Police want to stop these people before they do this to someone else. Their next victim may not make it out alive.
But when police get their hands on the ATM surveillance footage, it will prompt an unlikely suspect to come forward. One with a harrowing story centered around a roller coaster relationship that left her fighting for her life one moment and riding for her man the next.
He's like, "You're not leaving me. If I can't have you, nobody else can. I'm gonna kill you before you leave."
It was hard for her to say no to someone she loved so much. When you love someone, you take risks, you ride for each other. And that's essentially what she did for her man.
July 2012. Atlanta police are investigating an armed robbery turned kidnapping case on the city's southeast side.
But at this point in time, there's a lot of unknown factors in this case. However, investigators and police do know that they are looking for 3 males and 1 female.
Fortunately, the kidnapping victim, 24-year-old Kurt Sanford, has returned home safe and sound and has told police his story.
He told them he was robbed at gunpoint at several ATMs, then the gunman pushed him out of the vehicle.
With the victim safe, detectives get to work tracking down the assailants. As the sun rises over the city, they begin to pore through surveillance videos from the ATMs Kurt accessed at gunpoint.
It only took authorities less than 24 hours to start putting their case together. They had the victim's testimony. They knew where the ATMs were.
In the surveillance footage, detectives find just what they need.
There's good, clear images of the suspects, and they know someone will be able to identify them.
They can see 3 males and 1 female driver.
They release it to the public. It's on all the broadcast channels, all the evening news.
Shortly after releasing the footage to the media, officers get a tip.
The tipster reveals the names of the 3 men in the footage: Brandon Woods, Alvin Tinch, and Aaron Bear Wiley, along with their female accomplice.
The tipster identified the female driver in the video as 23-year-old 𝕬𝕚𝕚𝕚 Ryland.
The tipster hangs up without giving any more information. But when detectives heard the name Aaron Wiley, they knew they were onto something.
Aaron Wiley was known to police because they had dealt with him a few times in the past.
He's a well-known drug dealer in the Atlanta area and a suspect in several robberies throughout the city.
Detectives prepare to make their move on the suspects. But before they get far, they receive word that someone has just arrived at the station to speak with them. It's none other than 𝕬𝕚𝕚 Ryland.
I took Shay to turn herself in. We was thinking she was gonna get a bond and we was gonna be able to get her out.
While city police search for the 3 male suspects, detectives sit down with the alleged getaway driver.
When I first turned myself in, it was so nerve-wracking.
𝕬𝕚𝕚 tells detectives that she could feel the heat once the surveillance videos were released, and decided to come in after talking it over with her mother.
She had to go and have a painful conversation with her mother. Shayla tells her everything.
We both are crying. Shayla told the kids, Mommy have to go away for a little while. Y'all gonna be okay with Nana.
Shayla says she feels terrible for what transpired, that it was never meant to happen.
She feels bad for the victims. She knows it had to be a very traumatic experience for them.
According to Shayla, her involvement in the crime was all due to the roller coaster relationship she had with Aaron Bear Wiley.
When I first met Bear, he was like that, protector I was looking for.
She knew that he dealt some drugs, but she didn't know anything else about some of the other things he was involved with at the time.
That is until one day, after a few months of dating, when she saw another side of Aaron.
He's like, babe, I need a ride. I need you to take me down to the country. I'm just going to holler at my cousins and stuff.
The request seemed simple enough. Shayla drove Aaron to the residence, and a man she didn't know got into the car.
I'm just sitting there in the driver's seat, and Bear just pulls out his gun and tells the guy that's in the back seat with the weed to leave the weed and get out the car. I was very terrified.
Shayla says once the man exited the car, Aaron yelled for Shayla to drive. But she couldn't. She was in shock.
Bear grabs the wheel, controlling the wheel, because I'm literally like, what is going on?
Shayla says once the two were home, she confronted Aaron.
I'm cussing him out because I'm like, you're going to have these people come find me. They're going to kill me and my kids.
According to Shayla, that's when things took a frightening turn.
He throws my phone into the wall. Cracked my screen. As soon as he did that, I jumped up, launched at him, and he's trying to hold me and won't let me go. So I'm like, you know what, this is just a bit much for me. I just don't want to do this. But he wasn't having it.
Shayla tells detectives she decided she wasn't going to stay there anymore. But Aaron didn't want her to go, and he was trying to prevent her from leaving at any cost.
He had a rock that was this big stone, and he just threw it. And it hit my windshield. So it cracked my windshield and put a dent in the hood of my car.
Shayla says Aaron then got in front of her car and wouldn't budge.
I see him pull out his gun. He pulled out his gun, he started shooting at my car.
He was clearly not ready to let Shayla go without a fight.
He's like, if you're not leaving me, if I can't have you, nobody else can. I'm gonna kill you before you leave me.
After fleeing the apartment complex, Shayla went straight to the police station to file a restraining order.
As soon as I gave them the name of who I needed a restraining order against, it was like a light went off.
He had a long rap sheet, and they wanted her to work with them to incriminate him and get him arrested.
But even then, Shayla still loved Aaron. She didn't want to be responsible for putting him behind bars. She just wanted protection for herself and her kids.
These people were more interested in catching him and what he do and how he get his money. But that's not why I'm here. I need a restraining order. This man just shot at me.
Shayla says after that, she and her children stayed with a friend.
She knew she needed to do something to protect herself and protect her children.
But Shayla wasn't done with Aaron yet. Soon, he would lure her back into his arms and make her go further for him than she'd ever gone before.
He's just like, what's up? I don't want you to leave me. I can't do this without you.
He had a hold on her, and there's no denying that.
July 2012. Atlanta police are questioning 23-year-old single mother Shayla Ryland for her part in an armed robbery turned kidnapping.
She had driven the car while her boyfriend and the other two suspects took the victim to multiple ATMs, robbing him at gunpoint.
According to Shayla, this wasn't the first time her boyfriend Aaron Bear Wiley had robbed someone at gunpoint.
There was one incident when he robbed a guy and took his weed with Shayla in the car.
Shayla claims she tried to leave Aaron after the drug robbery, and things got violent.
He had cracked her phone, broke her windshield, shot at her car.
Shayla says she was able to escape. She filed a restraining order against Aaron and took the kids to a friend's house. But on the afternoon of July 3rd, Shayla decided to go back to the apartment.
Shayla needed more items for her children, clothes and so forth, so she decided to go back to her apartment.
It was quiet. I just didn't think anybody was there.
Shayla was on high alert, just trying to make sure that she did not run into her ex.
However, things didn't go exactly as planned.
I'm in the kid's room and I'm getting clothes and stuff. Like, he comes in there and he's wanting to talk. And I'm like, no, like, I don't want to talk. I just want to get these clothes so I can go.
The argument continued to escalate to the point that Shayla felt her safety was threatened.
He was like, no, like, you can't leave me like that. Like, please, let's just talk. I just want to talk to you.
She had an eyebrow cutter in her pocket, and she thought, I need to defend myself because I don't know what you're going to do.
As soon as he came to me, like, I just swung in my hand and I cut him.
Shayla says she had never heard anyone like that before. She just reacted in a moment of panic.
Of course, now she feels guilty. She's like, oh my goodness, I've hurt you. One thing she didn't anticipate was cutting him so deeply.
The blood started squirting out of his arm. So at that point, it was just like, I'm about to kill this man. So I just grab anything, I'm trying to just stop it from bleeding.
Shayla tells detectives once the bleeding was under control, the vibe between the two changed.
I stopped the bleeding and we just talked. And I'm letting him know, like, Bear, like, you know, this is just too much for me. I'm not used to stuff like this.
He basically told her that, of course, he missed her, he loved her.
Shayla says she felt bad for hurting Aaron and couldn't deny the fact that despite everything he had done, she still cared about him.
He had a hold on her, and there's no denying that.
We're talking, and he's just like, you know, what's up? Like, I don't want you to leave me.
For Shayla, it was almost like, this man loves me so much that he's not willing to let me go. That was a turn on, too.
Shayla admits that's when Aaron asked her for a favor that would affect her life forever.
He basically told her that he had somewhere to go that evening and he needed her to give him a ride.
Shayla says she knew her man well enough to pick up on the fact that he was planning to commit a robbery that night, but she still agreed to help him.
I said yes. I knew he was going to do it, because at this point I know what he do, but I was not supposed to be a part of it. I'm thinking I'm going to drop him off wherever he's going.
Shayla feels awful after cutting Aaron's arm, and she feels like she owes him, so she's willing to do whatever he wants her to do.
In that instance, he preyed on her wanting to take care of him and repair them, and she was manipulated by Aaron.
Shayla tells detectives that later that night, around 10 p.m., she did as Aaron asked and stopped to pick up two of his friends.
So now I have Bear and his two friends in the car.
The neighborhood was full of college kids and appeared to be an easy place to find victims.
What I thought I was doing was dropping him off and he'll call me later and let me know he's okay. Well, that's not what took place.
Shayla says Aaron's friends got out of the car, but Aaron stayed behind.
Aaron is in the car talking to Shayla about the relationship, trying to get back into her good graces.
Suddenly, Aaron's friends tap on the glass and signal to him that it's time to go.
I was like, I'm gonna just let you out right here and I'm gonna just go ahead and go. So he was like, nah, just hold on real quick.
That's when Aaron and his friends approached the house. Shayla says she was nervous. She didn't want to be a part of any of this.
I'm confused, I'm stuck, I'm scared. I don't know what's going on because I'm not even supposed to be here. and I have to go back to my kids.
Shayla tells detectives that after a few minutes, Aaron and his friends rushed back to the car with a suitcase full of stolen items. But they weren't alone. They had kidnapping victim 24-year-old Kurt Sanford with them.
As soon as he get in the car, I'm like, no, what is going on? Why is this guy with us? And he like, no, it's all right. He's just gonna ride with us.
She's directed to start driving.
Shayla says she did as Aaron commanded and drove them around to several ATMs. But after Aaron and his friends were finished draining Kurt Sanford's bank accounts, the night took a much darker turn.
There's a realization that this man has seen our faces. So Aaron asked the other suspects, what should we do? Should we kill him?
At this point, Shayla knew if this man was going to survive, it was going to be up to her to save his life.
She finds her voice. She's saying, whatever it takes for him to stay alive, I'm going to make that happen.
When Bear asked, did they want to kill him? I'm telling him like, no, what are you doing? You're not killing anybody.
"23-year-old single mother Shayla Ryland has just admitted her involvement with the armed robbery and eventual kidnapping of Kurt Sanford.
Shayla drove her boyfriend and 2 friends to several ATMs where they made an innocent man drain his bank accounts.
Shayla says after the men forced Kurt to withdraw cash from several ATMs, she tried to talk to him.
I'm talking to the guy like, you know, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. And Barry's telling me like, man, shut up. Stop talking to that man. Like, and because I'm sitting here trying to empathize with this man and I'm scared. He's scared.
Despite her relationship with Aaron, despite anything she's been exposed to, this is still traumatic. There's a victim at gunpoint in the backseat of the car.
I don't know this stranger, and you guys have kidnapped this man and put him in the car. And I didn't want anybody to be able to identify my voice, my face, or anything. So I kept my head low, kept my voice off. I spoke in a whisper the entire time.
According to Shayla, that's when the night took a shocking turn.
Bear turns around and asks his other 2 friends, like, what y'all want to do with him? Y'all want to kill him?
At that point, Shayla stopped whispering.
My head is up, my voice is strong and loud and bold, and I'm like, no, that is not going on. You're not killing anybody.
Shayla says an argument ensued between her and Aaron, but he eventually gave in.
We were at a complete stop, but they did still like push him out, like, all right, open the door, push him out.
Once Kurt was free, Shayla says she felt relieved.
If it wasn't for Shayla, he may have been dead.
After that, she dropped Aaron and his friends off. But before Aaron left, they had a moment to themselves.
We dropped the 2 guys that was with Bear. They just committed a robbery. So they still have TVs and laptops and phones and all kinds of stuff in my car.
Aaron told her to keep the items in her car until the next day. But Shayla was racked with guilt. She knew what had happened was wrong.
You just felt like you didn't do anything when technically I was the driver of this crime. So I did something.
Shayla says Aaron continued to assure her everything would be okay.
And he's like, you know, I'm so sorry and I love you.
He's trying to manipulate her to keep her calm and to keep her quiet about what happened.
Shayla admits she ultimately gave in and agreed to keep the stolen items for her man. The next day, Shayla met up with Aaron to exchange the items.
I met Bear and let him get the stuff out my car.
Shayla, I'm sure, is thinking about, was this even worth it? What was I thinking? The regret settles in.
She hated that he got her into all this trouble, but despite that, she still loves him and cares about him.
However, soon after meeting back up with Aaron, Shayla got wind of the surveillance videos from the ATMs.
Not even 24 hours later, started getting the calls that, you know, I was wanted for questioning.
At this point, she knows she doesn't have many options. She can feel the heat, and she decides to turn herself in.
Once Shayla is done telling her story, detectives immediately take her into custody.
Shayla now has found herself caught up in a complete felony. There's guns involved, there's a kidnapping involved, there's just so much going on.
I've never been a part of anything like this, so it was just so scary.
She had never been in trouble before, and all of a sudden, here she is. She's thinking, what's going to happen to my children? She's wondering what will happen to her.
Police track down Shayla's 3 accomplices and arrest them as well.
Shayla, Aaron, and the 2 minors, they're all facing charges that consist of kidnapping, armed robbery, burglary, and possession of a firearm.
Every charge that he had, they gave to me. And so it made it a lot harder.
Each charge that she had carried 10 years. So she's looking at an easy 40, 50 years.
As Shayla awaits trial behind bars and away from her children, she feels like she's hit rock bottom.
I'm locked up and don't know for how long, and I'm scared to death. I had to forgive myself for even allowing somebody to come in like that and take me from my kids.
But little did Shayla know, a new development would bind her and Aaron forever.
I was disappointed, so hurt, mad, like all kind of emotions. I didn't want him to have anything to do with our family.
I think that for Aaron, he did what he wanted to do, and that was to have his claws into her forever.
August 2012. 23-year-old single mother Shayla Ryland is facing serious time behind bars for her role in the armed robbery turned kidnapping of Kurt Sanford.
My lawyer was like, you know, she's cooperating.
As Shayla awaits trial, her emotions are running rampant.
He's dragged her into a situation that's life-altering, the reality of thinking in about her children, that what's going to happen if I'm away from my children.
And just as Shayla felt her world couldn't get turned any more upside down, she receives some stunning news.
I found out I was pregnant.
She was completely shocked and blown away that she was in this situation, that not only was she behind bars, but she was pregnant behind bars.
I think Aaron was trying to get me pregnant. I think he was trying to get me pregnant in an effort to keep me.
He felt as though if I give her a baby, she's mine. She's not going anywhere, and that's it. It's like securing his future with her.
With the weight of this new development bearing down on her, Shayla eventually decides to plead guilty and avoid trial.
The details of my plea agreement was for me to do 10 years. At this point, I had already been there for 6 months.
Shayla would be eligible for parole after 6 years served.
I'm telling Shayla, you do good, which I know you will do. You could come home early. I got the kids. Don't worry about the kids. I just need you to just get this done.
Shayla's accomplices eventually plead guilty as well.
Aaron Wiley was sentenced to 30 years for his part in the robbery and the kidnapping.
Brandon Woods and Alvin Tinch are issued lesser sentences.
They were sentenced to 15 years.
On April 9th, 2013, Shayla gives birth to a baby girl in prison. After just 3 days, she surrenders the baby over to her mother.
3 days after a mother delivers a child, they're still bonding.
Shayla went through a stage of depression, and I couldn't do nothing for her.
My mom already had my sisters and brothers, and then I go to prison and leave kids on her. And then on top of that, I end up having another baby in jail. So, you know, she had to raise yet another child. And so it was hard. Like, it was hard for my mom.
However, in August of 2017, Shayla and her family received the news they've been dreaming of. Shayla is being released from prison early.
Shayla Rowland only ended up serving 4.5 years of those 10 years due to good behavior.
When Shayla was released, she hit the ground running. Got her kids, got her own place, got her a job. She just kind of picked everything back up.
She has a good job at a doggy daycare, and she's a manager there, and she's very beloved by her customers, and she's doing a phenomenal job with getting reacclimated to society, to her children, and that's impressive.
But even as Shayla continues to move forward, she is still haunted by the mistakes of her past.
I loved him. I did love him. But I have a lot of regret about the situation. I thought I wanted the excitement. I thought I wanted the chaos, but now I'm missing Mario. I shouldn't have left Mario.
Shayla hopes that by telling her story, it will serve as a cautionary tale to other young women put in similar situations.
Shayla considered herself an independent, free-thinking, kind of Wonder Woman. Never in a million years would she consider herself someone who would do anything for her man. And that's exactly what she ended up doing.
I never seen Shayla choosing a life of crime or choosing to be with someone in that way, a for my man type. I didn't see that at all.
Know who you are, know what you want, and stand on it. It's okay to be alone. Whether you feel like man love you or don't love you, God loves you. So keep being you. Just be true to you.
When life is good, it's easy to take it for granted. The grass always looks greener on the other side. But sometimes once you cross over, the grass you thought was greener begins to wither and die. You find yourself wishing you could go back and wondering how things might have been if you just stayed put. Abuse is never okay. If you or someone you love is in an abusive relationship, there is help available. Call the Domestic Violence Hotline